Hello all saints, the Lord be with you. This will be my last midweek message for a little while because by the time this is broadcast, I'll be on my way across Australia to Sydney for the funeral of Joy's mother. Lots of us know about funerals and death, and this is the Easter season, so I suppose in one way it's a good time for a funeral, if there is a good time for a funeral. Lots of us have experienced this. And one of the things that we want to ask about at Easter is about resurrection, of course. And a very common question that lots of people ask is, well, when I'm raised from the dead and get to heaven, how old will I be? Will I be the time when I was most handsome and beautiful at 25 or 18 or whenever it was you think you were the most handsome or beautiful? What will we be like? Well, one of the answers to that, I think, is wait till you get there and find out then. But there is another answer, I think, and that is you'll be like the image. You'll be like Jesus. Does that mean we'll all be clones, all exactly the same? Well, no. When you look at what God has made, everything is different. A huge variety in God's creation, and certainly amongst human beings. Everyone is different, and different in all kinds of different ways. There'll be something common to us all, though. Although we'll be different because God is that kind of varied God, there'll be something about us that will resemble Jesus. We'll share, actually it'll be glory. We share his glory, being somehow in our nature, in our new way of living, like him. How do we know this? Well, we know it because the real image became human. Jesus is the real image of God as a human being, and he took our humanity to death. He knows about death, but he's raised it to a new life, a resurrection life, where the body that we'll have beyond the resurrection, like Jesus' body, is not mortal. He was clear that it was a real body. He told them to touch it and had flesh and bones he could eat and so on. But it wasn't quite glorified. I guess we saw a picture of that at the Transfiguration, where he was splendidly bright and astonishingly, in a sense, shining, I suppose you'd say. But he didn't seem exactly like that after the resurrection, but he did have a different body. What we're looking forward to, though, is sharing in the resurrection body that comes because of Jesus. And Easter and resurrection is something that gives us assurance when we think about our own death or the death of a friend or our own funerals or someone else's funerals. But it's in the end about sharing the likeness of God, being in a body no longer mortal. Now, in the meantime, while we're waiting, something is going on in our own lives and bodies. We're already being changed and transformed because we're already seeing a glimpse of the glory of God in the present. Paul says this in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. He says, "We see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. What we preach is not ourselves," Paul says, "but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' made his light shine in our hearts, to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory in the face of Christ." And so already we see something of the glory of God in the face of Christ as it's displayed in the gospel. So Paul can say at the end of chapter 3 of 2 Corinthians, "We all, with unveiled faces, contemplate the Lord's glory and are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit." That's going on now. A little advance foretaste of the glory that we'll share in the future. So sometimes our hearts are sad. We're right to be sad at death. But we ought not to be discouraged. We ought not to despair about life. because glory awaits. The glory of the only Son of God shared with us. That's a wonderful future to look forward to, and already the transformation and the glory, Paul says, is going on now as we see the glory of Christ in the gospel. So keep reading the gospel, keep living the gospel, keep knowing the gospel, because that changes us.